Welcome to the public participation event for the Castleconnell Flood Relief Scheme. The purpose of this event is to present to the public and interested parties the identified preferred option for the Castleconnell Flood Relief Scheme and to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts on it. This presentation will provide you with an overview of the project, an insight into the development and identification of the preferred scheme option, and a detailed description of each of the proposed measures. The River Shannon is the dominant source of flood flows through the village. After the 2009 flood in Castleconnell, the Shannon Upper and Lower River Basin CFRAM study included Castleconnell as an area for further assessment and concluded that a flood relief scheme would be viable and effective for the community. Following another flood event in 2015, Limerick City and County Council, in partnership with the Office of Public Works, appointed the JBA Consulting and JB Barry team to develop a flood scheme for Castleconnell on behalf of OPW, who will be funding the scheme. The aim of the scheme is to reduce flood risk to properties up to the 1 in 100 year event. There are 5 stages to the scheme, which is currently progressing through stage 1. This takes us from project commencement to options assessment, scheme development and design. This is the longest phase due to the level of assessment required to develop options that balance all needs of the scheme. The first public participation event was held in June 2020 to gather information from the public regarding the previous flooding experienced in Castleconnell and to understand what elements of a potential scheme are most important to the local community. Following this, the second public participation day was held in September 2022 to present a range of measures that had been considered and tested prior to arriving at 3 emerging preferred options. The public were invited to share their thoughts on each of the options and any potential constraints to their implementation, and asked to identify the option that they would like to see brought forward. This feedback aided in the identification of a preferred option, which is on display at tonight's event. The scheme will soon progress to stage 2, and the planning submission to An Bord Pleanála is programmed for the end of this year. The detailed design will begin following the planning submission to allow the scheme to go to tender as soon as possible once planning permission has been granted. It is anticipated that construction will begin at the beginning of 2025, with the works expecting to take approximately 1 year to complete. An updated and improved flood model was developed for the scheme to refine the work previously completed as part of the CFRAM study. The model was updated with a recent topographical survey and calibrated to both measured and anecdotal flood levels for past flood events. The Shannon downstream of Partine Basin splits into 2 channels, the Ardnacrusha Canal and what's referred to as the Old River Shannon. The hydraulic model is a catchment-wide model for the Old River Shannon, from Partine Weir to the north down to its confluence with the Mulcair River to the south. It also takes into account the tributaries along this stretch, including the Cedarwood and Stradbally streams within the village and their impacts on flood flows on the Old River Shannon. It was important to consider the capacity through Ardnacrusha Power Station to more accurately estimate the potential flows down the Old Shannon in flood events. Under normal operational conditions, up to 345 metres cubed per second is regulated along the headrace to the power station and passed through 4 large turbines. For the purpose of the design of the flood relief scheme, an allowance has been made for a reduced flow of 258 metres cubed per second to the power station. This is known as the baseline design scenario and ensures that the defences will be designed to provide protection to the village in the event of a mechanical failure while another turbine is down for programmed maintenance. To put this into context, in February 2020, 1 turbine was under maintenance when a flood event occurred. The flood map on this slide shows the baseline flood extents for the 1% annual exceedance probability, or AEP, event. This is the equivalent to the 1 in 100 year event, which means that there is a 1 in 100 chance of occurrence in any given year. This modelled flood extent highlighted 50 properties which are at risk and allowed a suite of measures to be tested within the model for their effectiveness in protecting these properties. Those measures that proved effective were grouped into options, which were presented at last year's public participation event. The feedback received at this event was included in the options assessment and evaluation, along with other factors such as economic, social, cultural heritage and environment, and ultimately resulted in the identification of a preferred option. This option was presented as option 2 at last year's event and is the most extensive, offering protection to the Mall Road during a flood event. Although this option is also the most expensive, with a challenging cost-benefit ratio, feedback highlighted the importance to the community of maintaining access to the Mall Road at all times. The proposed scheme includes defences such as floodwalls, embankments, road raising, floodgates, non-return valves and culvert replacement works, from Rivergrove B&B to the north down to Coolban Woods at the south of the village. Operational protocols and formal maintenance plans will be put in place as part of the scheme to ensure that the demountable defences are installed at a predetermined trigger and that they are inspected and maintained on an annual basis. Pump sumps are proposed at 3 low points in the village to pump surface water over the defences during flood events. Stream maintenance is proposed along the overgrown sections of the Cedarwood stream, along with some culvert replacement works. The scheme has been designed to ensure minimal impact on the adjacent special area of conservation and surrounding environment. The proposed works to the northern properties include the construction of a new flood wall along the same alignment as the existing walls. Localised glass panels are proposed to maintain views of the river from key vantage points. The existing entrance to Rivergrove B&B will be replaced by a flood wall, and a new entrance will be provided at the northeastern corner of the property. Due to ground conditions, the proposed flood wall construction will comprise sheet-piled foundations with a capping beam supporting the wall above. The wall will be clad with a similar stone to the existing walls to maintain the architectural character of the properties. A new culvert will be provided for a length of approximately 36 metres at the downstream end of the Cedarwood stream, replacing an existing open feature. A proposed flood wall will wrap around the northern, western and southwestern boundaries of Mall House, and a floodgate is proposed across the entrance to Dunkeneely House. The existing Mall wall will be removed and a new flood wall is proposed approximately 1 to 1.5 metres inside the existing alignment. This is to avoid impacting the adjacent Annex 1 alluvial woodland. Stone from the existing wall will be reused to clad the new flood walls where possible. Where new stone is required, a similar stone will be sourced locally if possible, to maintain the cultural and architectural heritage of the area. The 2 red arrows on this slide show the viewpoints for the photomontages on the next 2 slides. The first viewpoint shows what the Mall Road looks like both before construction of the scheme and after, from a location outside Mall House and facing south. Although the new wall will be approximately 300 millimetres higher, it is not expected to impact the views of the river or affect the character of the area. The narrower road, which complies with minimum road widths in current standards, will have the added benefit of slowing down traffic entering the village from the north. Viewpoint 2 shows the view from a point at the Scanlon Park Junction facing north. A demountable floodgate is proposed in the main fisherman's access, which will only be installed in advance of and during flood events, so that access can be maintained for the remainder of the year. The road will be raised by approximately 400 to 500 millimetres, forming a tabletop ramp across the entire junction. This road raising provides passive flood protection for the 1% AEP flood event under standard operational conditions at Ardnacrusha. A floodgate is proposed at Island House to provide further protection for non-standard operational conditions with an allowance for freeboard. It is proposed to replace the existing stone wall from Island House to Maher's Pub with a new flood wall. Similar to the proposed wall along the Mall Road to the north, this wall will also be set back to avoid works within the adjacent special area of conservation, and the stone will be reused where possible to clad the roadside of the new wall. Viewpoint 3 shows the view from a point at the Scanlon Park Junction facing south. A new flood wall is proposed along the perimeter of the Maher's Pub car park. This wall will be clad in stone from the car park side to ensure that it is in keeping with its surroundings. There is a large cedar tree that is home to a flock of herons located to the rear of the car park. The arborist report suggests that the roots of the tree may extend beneath the rear of the car park, and damage to these roots could risk loss of the tree. To avoid this, it is proposed to step the flood wall in at the rear of the car park by approximately 6 metres. Further site investigation will take place in the coming months, including a trial pit to establish whether roots are present here. The results of this will determine the exact alignment of this wall. Viewpoint 4 shows the view of the front of the Maher's Pub car park from the public road. proposed flood wall at the rear of the car park will continue in a southwestern direction adjacent to the Meadowbrook estate, before tying in with a proposed embankment which wraps around Stormont House. From here, a new flood wall will be constructed inside the existing castellated boundary wall. Access for maintenance of the embankment will be via a locked gate at the end of the Meadowbrook cul-de-sac. Access to the public through this gate will be prohibited. The existing driveway to Stormont House will be raised by approximately 700 mm to form an embankment-type structure. A low-level flood wall, approximately 300 mm high, from the driveway to the rock outcrop at the castle will cut off flows from the south. It is proposed to conceal this wall with earth at either side. A tabletop ramp at the Coolban Woods junction will provide an element of passive protection, similar to the one at the Scanlon Park junction. A demountable flood barrier is proposed across the Chapel Hill Road to provide further protection up to the 1% AEP design event. Short lengths of flood wall will be provided at either side of the barrier, tying in with the rock outcrop of the castle to the north and to a proposed embankment to the south. This embankment will wrap around the Coolban Woods estate before tying in with high ground to the south. The final viewpoint shows what the proposed embankment will look like from a location at the entrance to Coolban Woods, facing south. The Cedarwood stream is currently heavily vegetated, over a length of approximately 300 metres. Removal of overgrown vegetation will form part of the scheme, with a regular maintenance programme proposed to manage further vegetation growth on an annual basis. It is proposed to replace an existing circular culvert with a larger rectangular culvert and widen the existing channel for a distance of approximately 15 metres immediately upstream of this culvert to ensure improved conveyance. Climate change is an important consideration in any scheme to ensure that it remains operational into the future. For Castleconnell, there are two main avenues that can be considered: extending and raising defences, or a regional climate change approach to managing the River Shannon at a catchment scale. The scheme will be built to present-day flood defence levels, but the foundations will be constructed so that raising them down the line is possible without rebuilding walls and embankments. Alignments of the proposed defences have also taken this into consideration to prevent the need to further realign defences in the future. The mid-range future scenario was modelled, which considers a 20% increase in flows, and showed that defences would be required at 3 additional properties in the future. A scheme-specific climate change adaptation plan has been developed as part of the project. Now that the detail of the scheme has progressed, the Natura Impact Statement and Environmental Impact Assessment Report are underway. These, along with the feedback received today, will allow completion of the Options Report, which describes in detail the extensive optioneering that has been carried out to date, including measures that have been considered but not brought forward to option stage. The planning submission is currently scheduled for the end of 2023. Our project website, which is currently under development, will be the main source of information and updates for the scheme. All information presented today will be uploaded to the website following the event. We would also appreciate if you would take a few minutes to fill out and return one of the questionnaires available here tonight. It will also be made available on the website for download and email back to us. We can be contacted via castleconnellfrs@jbaconsulting.ie or through the Contact Us page on the website for any queries you may have going forward. If you have any questions or feedback on the information you have seen and heard today, we welcome you to approach a member of the project team on the floor today. Thank you for your attendance here today and your engagement and cooperation to date.